Welcome back to Cruder.com. In this next video on charts, we're going to be going over a real-life example where sparklines are used. Then we'll take a look at how we can turn it into a dynamic sparkline. Okay, so here's the example that we're using here. I went to Google.com and on their finance page, and I was looking at some of the charts that they had available. And one of them was sparklines, and it looked like this down here. So this is a screenshot that I took from Google, and we're going to try to make a look-alike, which is what I have up here. This Google Finance chart lookalike up above to simulate what I found on Google's website. So on google.com/finance, you'll find charts that look like this when Google is trying to compare the company that you're looking at. So Facebook popped up for me, and Facebook shows that it had this current price, the change for the day, and the percent change for the day. Then it had a little sparkline, and you could choose either if you want to see that sparkline shown in just 1 day's worth of data, the month worth of data, or the year worth of data. And then it gives us their market cap. So this is what we're after here, this sparkline right here, so that we can have a real life example of truly how people want to see data and how they find it useful. So we're going to go ahead and create this. And then also to make it dynamic, I made this example so that you can change between the year, the month, and the week. And if I change it to week, you'll see that all of my numbers change, they update, and same with my sparkline. So it's a dynamically moving sparkline. And same thing with month. You'll see a little bit more data comes in, and so the sparkline is a little bit more jagged. And then let's go back to the year. It gets very jagged. And all at the same time, my data in this summary chart is updating. But notice that the sparkline needs to have a bunch more data to then make up this besides just this one line. So I've pulled off of Google's website the historical changes, the historical stock data here. So it gets me the open, the high, the low, and the close for the day. And really what we're looking at is just the close for the day to make this sparkline. So let's take a look at how I was able to create this dynamic sparkline. So the first thing that I'm going to do is get rid of these. So I'm going to right click, go down to Sparklines, and then say clear selected sparklines. Now you may be wondering, how in the world was I able to go ahead and make the rest of this spreadsheet happen? Well, it's kind of out of the scope of this video, but go ahead and feel free to come in here, pop in with F2, see how I was able to write this formula. It's actually an array formula, so you have to use Control-Shift-Enter to enter it into the cell. And if you're not familiar with array formulas, you may want to go back to the array formula section and watch a few of the videos to get up to speed on it. So right now, the first thing to making a sparkline is simply to select the cell that you want to insert it into. Then we'll go up to the Insert tab on the ribbon and come on over to Sparklines. And this one is a line. So we're going to select the line. And the data range that we want here is for Facebook. So we're looking for Facebook's data. And I want to use the close values for all of Facebook's. And I've gone into Google, and Google was able to provide me with all of this data. I'm going to hold Shift and continue to press the page down so I can jump all the way through an entire year worth of Facebook data here. And there's the split. So I have Twitter. I'm going to just select through this one right here. So this is my data. And then I've put right below it Twitter's data for an entire year. And then below that, LinkedIn. And so now that I have all of the data selected, F5 through F254, I'm just going to simply press this button to pop back out and then hit OK. Now let's jump back up here to the top. You can see that my sparkline is now populated. I want to go ahead and do this for Twitter and LinkedIn. So let's do the same thing. So Insert tab on the ribbon, line, where's my data? Well, I kind of got to jump down. So I'm going to hit page down a few times so that it can pop down. I'm just looking at my left column, column A, where I find Twitter here. I'm going to hold Shift, page down a bunch of times until I see LinkedIn. And we'll select it all the way through here, 504. Pop back out, hit OK, pop back to the top, and then lastly, let's put in LinkedIn. So Insert tab on the ribbon, same thing, line. We're going to grab the data range for LinkedIn. This time, let's just select here, Control down to get to the bottom of our page, then hold Shift and pop up using page up. So page up a bunch of times, holding Shift, and there's Twitter. So pop down a couple more, and then find this one right here. So I'm going to go 505 to 754. I'm going to pop out, hit OK, and pop back to the top. So now I've got all of my graphs. Let's group them. So I can right click and go to Sparklines, hit group, or I could have gone into Design tab on the ribbon and hit group here as well. One thing I want to do with this entire group is go into the axis, and I want to say plot my data right to left so it switches the position. So I don't know if you saw that. Let me do it real quick. So I'm going to undo it and flips it, and then I'm going to do it again and it flips it back. So I know that it needs to be here because if I look at Facebook's data, it looks like it's, if I have it this position, it's low, 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 and it's getting pretty high. So right now at the top, which is the most current for Facebook, it's at $112 per share. Let's pop down using page down to see what it was at the beginning of the year. And we can see here that it was $74 or $75 a share. So that tells me it was low and then went high. So it would make most sense to have my Sparkline showing it from lowest to highest in a chronological order, from the earliest price over on the left to the most current price on the right. Now that I have that, let's go ahead and format some of this stuff. So notice that when I select just one, the entire group is selected. Let's pop back to the design tab on the ribbon. And let's put in our high points and our low points. I think that's pretty cool. It gives you a quick glimpse of the indication of when those events happened, the highest point and the lowest point. So it looks like Facebook a year ago was at its lowest point and now it's at its highest point, whereas Twitter used to be at its highest point about a year ago, maybe 10 months ago, and then now it's at its lowest point. And then we can see here with LinkedIn, it's kind of going up and down and it's been in between highs and lows. So this stock looks like it's been a little bit more volatile than the others. Now let's take a look at how we are doing in comparison to Google's Sparkline that we have here. So I've boxed in red here, Facebook, Twitter, and then LinkedIn down below. So Facebook, you can see is low going up to a high, which is kind of the same picture we're having here. I find that we have more detail in our Sparklines compared to Google's massaged Sparkline that they have here. And then the same thing with Twitter. It looks like they're higher, went down low. That's the same picture we're seeing here. And then with LinkedIn, we have some highs and lows, and it's a little bit more sporadic, which is what we're finding up here in more detail. Now there's a bunch of options that you can go through in here. You can change the design, what kind of colors that you want. You can make it a little bit more specific. You can even select your own colors, change the weight of the actual line. Let's put it up to 1 point, make it a little darker. That looks a little bit nicer in this view. Same thing with the markers. So right now my markers are red diamonds, and you could change those markers to something else. And then you can turn on more markers by clicking these checkboxes. Now let's take a look at this year drop down here and switch it to month and see exactly what is happening and why Excel is able to then calculate a different Sparkline and also dynamically update these values. So I'm going to hit month, and basically what just happened is that these formulas updated to then looking at the from and to dates. So you can see my from date is January 4th of 16 through January 29th of 16. So just about a month, and we're making sure that we haven't hit any holidays and also that we haven't hit any weekends. Because for holidays and weekends, the stock market isn't open, so there will be no data to be found here. Now, one thing that you don't know how to do is to dynamically filter on specific dates. And right now you can see that there is a date filter applied here, and it's a custom filter saying that the date is after or equal to 1/4/16, which is this date right here. Now, the question you're probably thinking is, how did I get that date to automatically apply in there? Well, I've actually programmed a macro behind the scenes to run every time I change this cell. So when I change this cell to saying, let's say week, my table updates, same thing with my Sparkline, and then also same thing with my filter. So my filter is really the only thing that is changing in this sheet based on a macro I have programmed to grab this date and reapply it, a custom date filter on this data. Notice that I have Facebook, and then it quickly switches to Twitter, and then quickly after that, it switches to LinkedIn. So now when the Sparkline is reading it, it only reads visible cells, which means the cells that are shown here, everything in between row 9 and 255 are pulled out of view. And because of that, the Sparkline is not reflecting it. And so let's check out some of the things that we can do with Sparklines. Let's pop down into the Design tab on the ribbon and come into the Edit Data for these Sparklines. And I'm going to pop it down, and it has a button right here saying Hidden and Empty Cells. This is usually not checked so that it says show data in hidden rows and columns. And because it's not checked, that's why it's not showing the data in those hidden rows or the filtered out rows. But let's say we check it and hit OK. Now our Sparkline, even though it's filtered, is now showing all of the data. So let's pop back in because we don't want that to happen. So let's unhide it. And then you can do a couple of other things. So if one of the values in here was 0, how do you want to display that empty cell on your Sparkline? You want to display with a gap, a 0, or just to connect the points with a line? So those options are here for you. So I'm just going to press OK, and now we're back to this view. And that basically wraps it up for Sparklines here. But like I said earlier, feel free to go ahead and take a peek at this worksheet, as there's a lot of other things happening to make this all work dynamically. So pop into it with F2 and see how these dynamic array formulas are working. Just remember to use Control-Shift-Enter when exiting the array formulas.